It's Blitz.
Hey, it's Daniel.
It's Kim. It's Win. Hello and welcome.
Welcome to another video by the Entropy System. I really wanted to play up the mask look, but I don't know if I look mask or if I look like a cis teen girl wrote me on Wattpad. I'm not gonna wear the hood the whole time. I just wanted to show you how friggin' cute the little ears are. This one's pierced. We're doing Ask an Alter today. It's been years and years since we did something like this. So we put out asks on all of our social medias. You can find all those socials in the description below, by the way, to see what kind of questions you guys had for us. And you guys had a lot of questions. So we've divided them up into 3 videos, which we will be releasing. I don't remember what we wanted to do, if it was one a day or one a week. This is the first one, so hey. With all the trauma and negative effects of DID, what's the best part of having it in your own experiences? I like being me. That's really nice. I also like that when we are sick, I don't have to be the one to deal with the symptoms. I don't know if there's really a good or bad, in my opinion. DID is just what it is. It is, and so we live with it. There's no use really forming an opinion about it one way or the other, because that's not going to change the reality. Firstly, it really made me realize who I am and what makes me me as Win. Working out that I had parts and really untangling my confused perception of myself made me understand who they are and made me understand what parts of myself were distinctly mine. Also, weirdly enough, I think that DID made self-care a lot easier. It's me taking care of myself, but with the motivation that I have when it comes to taking care of others.
I don't know, it's stressful. It's stressful. I guess I really like when we're faced with a life situation that only I can handle, and then I get to feel like the knight in shining armor for the system. It's good for the ego.
I don't know, for me personally, I like existing, and if we didn't have DID, I wouldn't be me. Does the body have a photographic memory? Like when you watch a movie and see it again in the inner world, is it correct? No. I mean, part of having DID is having a shit memory, right?
Oh, no, our memory is terrible.
DID is notoriously tied to bad memory, so I feel like having DID makes it even less likely that we would be able to do something like that.
We watch a movie and then try to describe it to you immediately after watching the movie. We'll probably get everything wrong.
If we want to rewatch a movie, we'll just rewatch the movie, because that's the only way we'll get that experience right.
What does switching feel like to you?
Do you experience possessive switches, switching where the consciousness stays with both alters? It feels like the alter who is fronting is falling or being pulled out of the front, and another alter is moving into where they were in control of the body.
Non-possessive switches, switching where the consciousness only stays in the fronting space with the fronting alter.
Rather than feeling someone possess and take over their body, it feels more like they've become an entirely different alter. When switching happens, the consciousness changes from one alter to the other, which feels like the consciousness being one alter and then becoming a different alter. Or both. I've never heard that terminology before.
We all share consciousness. We don't have the walls that don't let us see what's happening when things are up, out here when we're in here. You can be on my lap, you can't be over there.
To me, that just sounds like 2 people describing the same thing. A combination of the 2, it does feel like one part moved out of the way and the other part jumped in. We all have the consciousness, but the body kind of adapts to us, becomes us. Like a physical response of us becoming the other alter. It doesn't feel like we're morphing into each other, except sometimes we get blendy. That always sends me into a panic, because I'm like, oh no, the fusion, it's happening! So, cutting out the description of what each one feels like. If we're just saying, does the consciousness stay with both alters, or does the consciousness just stay up front? The consciousness stays with both alters, especially now that we have achieved this level of functionality. What does switching feel like to you? I know that this doesn't directly answer the question, but for me it's disorienting. I don't do it very much, so I'm not used to this. I'm used to doing stuff inside, so fronting and having to be in a exterior space and move the body around, it feels alien. Has the system as a whole started to find more peace and cohesiveness over the years? Yeah, absolutely. I personally have found a lot of peace recently that I did not have ever. The fear of being forgotten isn't really strong, and I attribute that to my internet footprint. The fear of disappearing is still there. At least I'm not afraid of just nobody ever remembering me. Yes, I've seen much less distress, and when distress does come, we have support systems and coping mechanisms to help with it. Not that we didn't before, but we're better at using them now. I think comparing, especially where we were before we took our YouTube hiatus to now, we've absolutely achieved more peace and cohesiveness, like, no question.
Sure. I mean, obviously not perfectly so, because I'm here. But, you know, they seem to be happy. I'm happy enough.
We've gotten more comfortable with each other. We've gotten more able to share memories and to switch fluidly, switch purposefully, and we've got systems in place that help us make sure that we are constantly checking in with one another, that each of our collective needs are being met and each of our individual needs are being met. What do you think the biggest change for the system has been in the last year? Oh, there's been a lot of really big changes in the last year. We've achieved like actual for real full-time employment for the first time ever. We spent a handful of years moving around a lot, every couple of months because of Andrew's job, but we finally settled down in one place. We live in a house instead of an apartment. In fact, in this past year, there are very few things that didn't change. We even changed our hair. It's not pink anymore.
I exist.
Blitz, probably. Blitz existing really threw off balance, took some of Wynn's confidence, I think. Not that him being present is affecting Wynn's confidence. I just think that his confidence came from theirs.
Wynn doesn't have a gender anymore.
Wynn's non-binary now. Wynn coming out as non-binary. Because that didn't just affect like us on like an inside level. That affected literally every aspect of our life. All of it. Everything. And really made us learn about a lot of people. Both in, you know, the amazing supportive Andrew way and the amazing supportive friend ways, and the less than supportive some other people in our life. Aside from DID, are there any psychological and or physical conditions shared or not shared by everyone else?
Does one also have something like OCD or a painful leg that no one else has?
Or is everything shared? If it is separate, what do you think happens during a fusion? That feels like a question for like a researcher? It's a really advanced question. The closest thing like I could say to any of this is like our cold tolerance varies. Like I'm way more cold tolerant than anybody else in the system. Some of us are set off and made to be stressed out a lot more easily than others. So like that varies. The way that we each walk, I kind of move with an awkward waddle. Kim walks with a very straight back. When Daniel walks, it's kind of like pelvis first. Not in a odd, awkward, uncomfortable way, you know, just kind of leans back and walks with the hips. I can only speculate to what would happen during a fusion in those situations. We don't experience anything like that though. We don't deal with any of this stuff. Like there are definitely traits we all share and traits that make us all different, but those are more like our emotional stability, stuff like that.
I have the condition of not caring about most things.
Do you have advice for new systems, especially with denial or communication? We struggle to understand and distinguish each other from our own thoughts. Do you have any tips for getting to know one another, especially things not commonly talked about either in past videos or other systems' past videos? Stop that. Stop denying it. It's here. It's you. Get to know all parts of yourself. You're never gonna get better if you keep repressing it all. Purposeful journaling helped. Sharing a Tumblr helped. We would do those like Tumblr get to know you quizzes or whatever. It would be like a practice in talking to each other, because like one person would answer and then be like, okay, what's everybody else's answer? And we normally didn't like switch to make it happen, but it was sending our words to whoever was fronting so that they could type it out. That's the thing we haven't talked about that's probably pretty obscure and not commonly like practiced. I think it's important to start small, try to do little amounts of communication at a time, slowly build it up, just like if you were learning any kind of new skill, or, you know, any... Leia's aggressively licking my hand and I don't know how I feel about it. Drawing my altars. Images were easier to transmit than words across barriers to each other, so it was easier for me to draw them the way they saw themselves than it was for me to try to talk to them and untangle what thoughts are mine and what thoughts are theirs. Journaling, if you're an artist, draw each other. Meditating, that's the study in color theory of DID. That is the basic algebra of DID. You gotta do those beginning steps in order to connect with one another. I'm sure there are some systems that are like, I never did that, and then they're fine. But for the most part, you gotta get those basics in order to really move on to the more complex stuff. How do you know when you've split? Are there any signs of new alters before they make themselves known? Does the time it takes to split depend on the trauma/system? Ed and I, we kind of keep an eye on the entire construction of the inner world, and so when something changes, like a split or fusion, the whole inner world shifts to reflect that. We know right away if there's been a split. I think the two of us and Jacob find out before anybody else, or at the very least, we're just not in denial about it when it does happen, so we accept it before anybody else. There's just a knowing, a feeling of, oh God, there was a new split, wasn't there? And I'll go through a period of denial about it, but generally, I know.
Well, I didn't exist. Then I did. And that was a pretty damn good indication.
I can't think of any like consistent things that happened in all of the splits that we are aware of. So I can only imagine that for other systems, the way they feel when they split is probably very different from all the times we remember splitting. Some of them are long and dragged out. Some of them we can feel like ourselves getting like super blendy. With Jessica, it just happened. Just like with Blitz, it took like a week and we were actively fighting it the whole time. But like, how do we know? There's just like another presence. You know, we can sense each other. We each have our own unique energy, which sounds really weird, but I don't know how else to say it. How do you manage blackouts?
We don't have those. It's a great, super special skill we got from therapy.
We don't have those, thankfully, anymore that we're aware of. Our time loss between each other is almost non-existent. Sometimes when we switch, we'll have a moment of like, wait, what was just happening? But we can fill each other in pretty quick. We just make sure to kind of do like a memory dump, like, here. Before, when we would have like blackouts, we would just check in on the inside and be like, hey, does anybody have memories about this? Does anybody know what went on? Please let us know. Somebody has the memory. Somebody knows what happened. When we did have blackouts, working on communication was important, but also just building trust with one another was really important. It is less scary when you realize you've lost a big chunk of time, when you know that whatever part of yourself was out front during that time was taking good care of the system and the body and our life in general. Managing just bad memory and collective memory gaps and stuff. We write everything down. We write everything down all the time. On a calendar, on an app, on something. Have like a written history. Get everybody on board with writing everything down all the time, and then you will be more aware of what's happening. As alters that tend to be more protective and reactive, how do you learn to step back from the instinct of acting as if the system is, or at some point will be, in danger, / learn to trust that the system will be safe in uncomfortable situations?
Oh, my mic's all the way over here.
I mean, by the time I stepped in, everybody kind of already had their role, their like thing figured out, so I just joined. Nope. You can't rub your face on the microphone. They pointed in a direction, said, hey, do that, and then I did. I don't get defensive on behalf of the system. I do get defensive on behalf of myself. It is a problem. I am working on it. I have had to actively be like, okay, what if I react to what is said in good faith? Like, manually making the choice to react differently to a situation has made me realize that I don't need to be as defensive as I am. That just comes down to practice. Really, the more you go through experiences and like force yourself to be like, no, I am gonna trust the system, to not go into like survival defender mode, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And you really have to just learn to live with discomfort, which is hard. Talking it out with someone I trust, like a partner or a friend or a trusted therapist, helps me gauge my situation a little better. The more situations I navigate successfully, the more I'm able to self-identify a healthy reaction to things next time. As alters that tend to be more protective, oh, that's not me. What are some signs or signals in behavior that flag when someone else is close, near to the front, that are physical? Or on a similar note, can you tell who is just out before you by context clues of your environment alone? In general, we're very covert externally, unless we are actively trying not to be covert. You wouldn't know that by how open and purposefully different we are. On YouTube, we really like distinguishing ourselves and being seen as individual parts, but that's just not something we can do in our everyday. For people who know us, there are tells, but just by looking around the environment, it's not that obvious of who was out, at least for us. The majority of the time, the things that we're doing in our free time are going to be things that most of the system likes doing, whatever video game we're playing, or like working on our Minecraft world. Other than like maybe like, oh, I know this is Daniel's favorite shirt that we're wearing today. There wouldn't be really any physical like outside difference between who's fronting. Besides that somebody are close to the front, there are like physical body responses. Again, the way we hold the body, it's very different. Inside, you know, our brain, there's kind of a sensation that each of us has that is unique. Each of us has our own like body sensation, and I will not be able to describe this. Kind of like a pre-sneeze tingle. Or like right when you're about to cry, when you're welling up to cry, there's kind of like a whoosh. You know, when you have a really big stretch and just kind of like a wave of something washes over you. Does anybody else experience that? It's kind of like that kind of sensation, tweaked a little bit depending on who it is that's close. How has therapy improved your situation and helped with your negative symptoms? Any particular type of therapy helped? How has therapy helped? In every way. In every conceivable way, it has helped our situation. Our therapist saved our whole ass life. EMDR with a trauma-informed therapist helped immensely. EMDR with someone who knew how to use EMDR. EMDR was also extremely helpful, not only for processing trauma, but also increasing the amount of access we have to one another. It became a lot easier to visualize an inner world, to hear one another talking to each other. Talk therapy, just kind of talk therapy helped a lot. With a trauma specialist. Our therapist being willing to treat us all equally was huge. For the most part, she was like, let's have Win be the one in the therapy sessions. Not because Win is more real, but because that provides consistency between therapy sessions. But if one of us specifically was like, hey, Daniel, specifically need help working through this thing that really only affects me, she was willing to work with them and treat them like a unique client and not just part of Win. Existing in a world where we can feel safe and having it continue to be a safe place. Is that exposure therapy? It's the opposite of exposure therapy. I think CBD helps as well. Cognitive behavioral therapy. CBD is a chemical. I think focusing on how to cope with overwhelm was also very effective. Have the lived experiences that influence the split changed over time? Are any parts still struggling with being part of a system? Yes and no. I mean, every split has been for different reasons. We really haven't had any two that were quite the same. So yes, the experiences have changed. The things that cause us to feel extremely stressed change based on every other aspect of our life and where that's at the moment. The things that influence splits, it's just going to be whatever extreme stressor we happen to be facing at the moment that has pushed us beyond the capabilities of our coping mechanisms and our support systems. I don't think the experiences that influence a split have ever been consistent. So they've changed over time and will continue to change over time. Well, hopefully they won't continue to change over time. Hopefully we don't have more splits. I mean, no two splits were the same. The influences were vastly different. The only common thread was this has become a stress that is so prevalent in our lives and we have tried everything we can to fix it and nothing is working. And so the subconscious is like, I got this. You know what you need? A new part. As far as parts struggling with being a part of the system, like, nah. I think that our balance is really good. I don't think that there's anyone who's struggling to find their place in the system right now. Nah, we live in peace with it. We've got a pretty good handle on things. I like our life as a system. I like my life as a system. I think Blitz is still struggling to find himself, what he likes, what he dislikes, what he finds interesting. He's not particularly enthralled by any of our current hobbies, but I don't think that has to do with being a system. We like the way we exist individually and we're all agreed that we are part of the same team. I think we've gotten a very good flow, and whenever someone is feeling struggled, we are pretty good about grouping together to meet that specific part's needs and make sure that, you know, those struggles are cared for. How do you cope with new splits? Does it ever cause anxiety or panic? Yeah, Win freaks out every time. I don't think anyone, especially Win, copes with new splits very well. Badly. I cope badly every single time. I go through denial and then I go through panic. We've got a balance. And when something new happens, it throws off that balance and it's like, shit, we've got to like on the go figure out this new balance, because we can't just stop life and adjust. We've got to keep doing things. And then I go into, I've got to fix this now. I need to find the new balance right now. I know that my existence caused a significant amount of anxiety for everybody else, which, you know, didn't feel the same as if they had rolled out the welcome wagon, had a little party for me or something. I feel like I could have been greeted in a much more friendly manner, but, you know, you can't. What's done is done. And like, I get it. Ed and I just make adjustments to the inner world as needed, and everyone else freaks out while they try to navigate what to do about the outer world. I'm really, really bad with change I don't have control over. That is my biggest weakness. We try very hard to not have splits. That is all the questions for this video. Hey, thanks for watching. Come see me in the next one. Thank you guys, everybody, for watching. Thank you to all of our patrons for helping support our channel. And a massively big thank you to the Electric Circus, Crow of Night, Disco Delirium, Sarah Beers, Sarah G, and Will Mitchell. If you'd like to join our Patreon community, a link to our Patreon is in the description below. If you have DID or OSDD, are over the age of 18, and are looking for a free community to join, please consider our channel sponsor, Dissociative.cafe. It's a fantastic community of down-to-earth, pro-healing systems, enjoying the company of people who are going through similar things as them. Please check out our next video that will be posted soon. It's about our inner world and our general likes and dislikes as a system. We look forward to seeing you there, and until then, remember, you are loved, you are valuable, and you are valid. See you in the next one. Bye!